Hello everyone. Africa is the lowest ranked region in the world in the latest Corruption Perceptions Index published by Transparency International. However, a few countries have their place in the world class of good students in the fight against corruption. Among these countries are Mali, Botswana, Niger and Burkina Faso. According to Samuel Kaninda, regional advisor at Transparency International, Burkina Faso is one of the countries that have complied with the standards and requirements to equip themselves with legal texts and mechanisms to fight corruption. Furthermore, some African countries have experienced an increase in corruption such as Morocco, Algeria, Ivory Coast and Cameroon. That being said, here are now the 10 most corrupt countries in Africa, according to Transparency International. Starting with number 10. Eritrea. With a score of 21 out of 100, Eritrea has been ruled by an authoritarian regime since its independence in 1993. President Isaias Afwerki, in power since that date, exercises strict control over political and economic institutions. This concentration of power fosters an environment conducive to corruption. Eritrea has mineral resources, but the management of these resources is often opaque. Mining contracts are often awarded without public tender, increasing the risk of corruption. Number 9. Burundi. With a score of 20 out of 100, Burundi, a small East African country, faces considerable challenges when it comes to corruption. Since the end of the civil war in 2005, Burundi has experienced persistent political instability, exacerbated by the 2015 crisis linked to the controversial re-election of President Pierre Nkurunziza. This climate of tension has fostered corruption and impunity. Number 8. Chad. With a score of 20 out of 100, internal conflicts and regional tensions have exacerbated corruption, with resources often diverted to finance military actions rather than development projects. Number 7. Comoros. With a score of 20 out of 100, which is equal to that of Chad and Burundi, Comoros has a history of coups and frequent changes of government. This political instability has created an environment conducive to corruption. In this country, funds that could improve infrastructure and public services are being diverted, leaving vulnerable populations without support. Number 6. The Democratic Republic of Congo. We still remain at a score of 20 out of 100 in this country. Corruption has spared no sector. The Democratic Republic of Congo has a wealth of natural resources. However, the country's economy is hampered by political crises and opaque financial flows. Revenues from natural resources, including minerals such as coltan, gold and copper, are often embezzled by officials and companies, depriving the country of vital development funds. Number 5. Sudan. Drowned in corruption, Sudan is a real disaster. According to the UN, Sudan is facing a humanitarian situation close to breaking point. According to the World Health Organization, the situation is described as a state of catastrophe. Truces in the fighting between the army and paramilitaries have been broken repeatedly. Natural resources, including oil and gold, are often mismanaged. Revenues generated by these sectors are embezzled by political and military elites. Number 4. Libya. With a score of 18 out of 100, since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya has experienced political instability marked by internal conflicts and the fragmentation of institutions. This situation has fostered corruption at all levels of society. Corruption is widespread in public administration, security forces and the judiciary. Number 3. Equatorial Guinea. With a score of 18 out of 100, corruption, poverty and repression continue to undermine Equatorial Guinea under President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, who has been in power since 1979. Huge oil revenues fund lavish lifestyles for the small elite surrounding the president, while much of the population lives in poverty. Number 2. South Sudan. With a score of 13 out of 100, South Sudan has been marred by internal conflicts, including a devastating civil war, since its independence in 2011. This instability has fostered corruption, as institutions are often weak and poorly structured. Corruption is widespread in public administration, security forces and the judiciary. And finally, the most corrupt country in Africa is Somalia. Somalia is also the most corrupt country in the world. Corruption has been part of Somalia's political landscape for over 25 years, following many political problems such as civil war, famine, piracy and Islamic fundamentalism.